And it's look at us, we're recording. It's so sweet. Hold on, let me make sure my how's my audio levels? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I've been recording a lot actually lately.
Amazing.
Going on these fucking rants. I gotta I sent you that video. So tell me what you thought of it.
I told you what I thought about it. I loved it.
Yeah,
in the beginning, I was like, she is going in.
You told me
people will be burning her house down.
Yeah. Oh my God. We're in outrage culture. Everyone's gonna be pissed off about everything. That's just
everything.
That's just kind of the nature of what it is, and
yeah,
I think that's why. You know what? I'm really hoping, genuinely, Amanda, that my intentions come out and the outcome is good because my intentions are good. I'm not doing this to jump into a conversation. I'm not doing this to I just want people to connect with one another, and I want people to challenge their own ideas, and I want my ideas to be challenged by other people too. So I feel like we're just all in this together, and I just wanted to talk, and I really don't appreciate this cancel culture that we're a part of. Everyone's just being shut down. There's no room for discourse or even just kind of iterating on your own thoughts. Even when I had released, I recorded that video. A couple hours later, I watched it probably a dozen times, and then I recorded another video as a follow-up because there was something in particular that I said that I didn't like, and I said I had a hard time accepting white privilege, but it's really not a matter of accepting it. I just in that video, that follow-up, I just kind of talked about where I was coming from when I said that, and it's not a matter of accepting. It's just these are my experiences. So it's just not my reality, but it's not to say that it isn't a reality.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so yeah.
No, I think it's important to be putting those things out there, especially right now, because what I've noticed is people will just blindly put these things out there and make these really big, bold claims, and then there's no substance or depth behind them. They have no backup. So I'm seeing it a lot right now. People are putting out these really hateful and hurtful posts and just kind of dump feeding it and not actually putting any personal context. There's no, this is why I'm sharing this thing. And then when you go to ask them, they're like, I don't want to argue. I don't want to argue about this. Well, then don't fucking post it.
Yeah.
If you have anything to say, don't 100%. Post it. Get that out of here. Because it's just adding to this messy dialogue that we have in this.
There is, but it's
for education.
There isn't even no dialogue. It's one person with a monologue, and then you have to sit idly by to listen to this monologue, and then you hope for your time to be okay, so I have a point, but it's no, it's just a monologue. End of scene. We're done.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Yeah, no, it's really frustrating. I just what I wanted to really kind of express is I just want to understand how we got here. Mm-hmm. And it feels like it happened so quickly. It's just all of a sudden, we've gotten from, I don't even actually know if there was a natural progression now that I think of it. Maybe it's always been this way.
I think there has been elements of this since the beginning of time. We are just seeing it in different ways. Who knows? Back in the day, they probably just scraped off their stone tablets when they wrote something, and they're like, "Nope, can't talk about that." And now, doing it in a virtual context.
Could you imagine if back in the day it was listen, Phineas, I realized that you put something on a stone tablet about 1500 AB years ago, and I'm gonna need you to resign from your job, please.
Yeah. Exactly. Or I'm just going to smash this tablet.
Yeah, I'm going to smash this tablet and have it never exist.
Yeah. And now we just don't have the luxury of that, because now as soon as you put anything out there, it's out there forever. So good luck.
It's out there forever. Yeah.
Lip chat.
What? Where are you going?
Lip chat.
Oh, yeah. Little chat.
Hydrated.
Anyways, so there were there were things that you'd mentioned last week that I wanted to talk about. And the things that came up this week that I wanted to chat about. Now I have to skim through my phone to see what some of the stuff was. Off the top of my head, I can remember that one of the things was you talking about deep connections with people, and I think more importantly, it wasn't just with people; it was with of the opposite sex. Yeah. Was it mainly with the opposite sex? Is that what it was? Or is it people in general? Is it indiscriminatory in the sense that it's either male or female?
Is it that I have a hard time with deep connections? Is that what I was saying?
No, not a hard time with deep connections. Forming deep connections.
Like
having, or maybe not deep connections. Maybe it was deep conversations. What was it?
Oh, the deep conversation.
The deep conversations, girl. Yeah. You know what I'm fucking talking about.
I do.
Also, I'm hoping that you don't want to monetize any of these videos because I'm just letting the expletives fly. I don't give a fuck.
Have them all.
Take them. Take the skull too. I don't fucking care.
Yeah, he's chilling. There he is. There's Frank.
Yeah, totally. See it.
There he is.
Yeah.
I love it.
If anybody's just listening to the audio, they're probably so fucking annoyed. Whatever.
Who are these people?
Get a job.
You're welcome.
Anyways, so that was a topic that I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into, because I found it fascinating reading that text, because I mean, let me preface, I'm gay, so like I'm in same-sex relationships, and you've had like girlfriends in your life, not obviously like same-sex relationships, but you've had connections with girlfriends, and you know it's so much easier. I actually find it, you know what, people say that it's like abnormal or like atypical to be gay. I actually find it really fucking atypical to be straight, because it's like you guys are two different species. Well, you guys are two different species, dude. Yeah. I don't know why you're trying to. You're speaking Cantonese and he's fucking Swahili. It doesn't even make sense. It makes more sense to be.
Are also bilingual, and we'll just like switch up languages all of a sudden. So that I'm speaking German and he's like, no, we're Spanish now. And I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, what? Yeah. So there's not even a Latin base to that.
Around.
Yeah. So I want to, it was really fascinating to hear your perspective on that. And I want to kind of dig deeper, because this is me being totally ignorant. I've had the luxury of being in same-sex relationships, in the sense of like, I'm always connecting. Like, it's always deep. And like, people always like kind of make fun of lesbians, like, because we always U-Haul, like we just fucking go in, like 2 months in, we're fucking going to IKEA together, we're picking beds, like it's a whole thing. It's because those relationships like form so quickly, because it's like, when you've met like a girlfriend and you're like, holy shit, like it feels like you're my sister, like I just love you so much, like this is awesome. That's what it's like in a same-sex relationship. So I couldn't imagine what it'd be like in a, what do you call it? Is it same sex? Opposite sex relationship. Yeah.
That's a weird thing.
Yeah, it sounds weird. Yeah, but maybe we can think. But that's what you're an opposite sex relationship. So what has that been like for you? And why did it even come up?
I think, so what comes up for me is when I think about who I am as a human, like my constitution, I obviously love language. Language is so important to me. I love words. I love digging deep. I love getting into all of it. And I want to get into all the nuances of it. And I want to unpack shit. And I want to get into that headspace. So don't get me wrong. There are men out there who can have those conversations. Few and far between from what I've seen. I'll be very honest. Sorry, men. But like, come on. Come on.
Yeah.
Few and far between. And what I find is that they're more willing to have those conversations when there's an ulterior motive. They'll just well, like when you start dating, then they want to have those conversations, and then they want to they just kind of maybe they want to prove that they're smart. And I'm like, okay, well, I can tell that you're not. So is that going anywhere?
In your experience, is that before or after sleeping with them?
Before and after, but it's more so in that beginning. It's like that beginning stage. And then it's kind of like it gets to the point where and I'm not blanketing it. I have a lot of really close guy friends that I can have really incredible conversations with. But what I find is, and maybe it's just like when you've been in a relationship for a long time, you just lose that dialogue, but I refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe that. I think there always is that capacity and always that ability to have those conversations. But what I'm struggling with, especially as of late, I just noticed like maybe we're just all really tired. Maybe we're all just really exhausted and nobody wants to have those deep conversations anymore because it's more and more common. It's more and more common that people are like, I just don't know. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So you have no idea how you feel about this topic. And they're like, well, like it just is. And I'm like, Jesus. Okay. So that's how we got here. That's how we got to this mess that we're in. Because we're all exhausted and maybe just don't have the brain capacity to have intellectual, open-ended and constructive conversations. Because the amount of people, and I'm saying this in general now, the amount of people that I try and have, like I want to ask questions. I want to know why you think the way that you think, where that came from, like what belief patterns are you bringing with you? What happened to shape the way that you see things? A lot of the time it just kind of like it's that surface level thing. I'm like, come on, give me more than that. And I just find it very fascinating how unwilling people are to go in that direction anymore. And it's I don't know if it's where I live. I don't think that has anything to do with it, or the type of people that I'm in and around, because like I pretty much am an open book and people kind of know what they're getting right off the top when we do start these conversations, relationships, friendships, any of that. And I'm very articulate with the fact that I do need language. And I've been having so many more conversations with people and they're saying the same. They're like, I just miss quality conversations. I'm like, so what's happening there? What is happening? Why has that shifted? I want to talk about religion. I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about race. I want to talk about white privilege. People are like, ooh, taboo. We can't go there. Maybe they're scared they're going to say something wrong, or they don't have the educational base behind it to actually talk about it. And that's fine. But on the flip side of this, so I've been like in this concept for the past week, like I am unpacking it. So I put thing out on social media through my business account and through my personal account because I wanted
What's your business account?
The Self Agency Academy.
Excellent.
You're welcome, everyone.
There it is.
So threw it out there because I was like, well, I need to see a broad scope of people. Like, what are people saying about this? And what I found came back was this kind of overarching thing of like, yes, like, thank you for saying it. But we also have to talk about the flip side of this coin. And that's, we do not create safe spaces. As a whole, there are so few safe spaces for people to actually articulate their opinion anymore. And this goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. As soon as somebody says something, they get bashed and berated and put down and basically verbally assaulted from other people who are just these little keyboard warriors that come in and degrade and devalue your opinion with no personal context. And I think that in and of itself has done so much damage to when we try and have in-person conversations. Because when you try and have an in-person conversation, people are like, no, like it's enough for me to get attacked online. I don't also want to be attacked in person. And I think there's this subconscious thing that happens for people where they don't distinct the two and say, okay, well, that was just a stranger online, fucking probably sitting in a basement somewhere. This is a person that cares about me and hopefully they're holding a safe space. So whatever happened to not only freedom of speech, but actually holding that space for conversation and actual dialogue, and being okay that we have differing opinions, and being okay that nobody has the answer. Yes, there's certain facts, but then within the facts, there's nuances and there's ways that people conceive and perceive it. So within that, why can't we agree to just like come to a common ground and say, yeah, like I hear your point, might not be right and true for me, but I hear you, rather than being like, you're the worst and you're so uneducated and just like bashing these people that you don't even know. And then I see it translate into real life, and I just think that's a really sad space to be, that we can't, we're so scared to even have these conversations anymore.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting almost paradox in what you're saying, like even making usage of like certain terminology. So you had mentioned creating safe spaces and safe places for people to speak. I feel as though that term, like creating a safe space or like safe space, as it were, has really been heightened by, ironically, a lot of the people that are kind of these, like, I don't want to like blanket throw this kind of I don't know, stereotype, but it's like these social justice warriors that are like, oh, we need safe spaces to be able to say what we want to say. But it's actually, no, they've used it in this kind of in this way that it's like it's really kind of just to support their doctrine, in the sense that like they're using the term safe spaces, but it's only so they can push their own ideologies and then put aside other people's ideologies. So I'm almost weary of even using the term safe space, because in my mind that stems from the same very people that are the ones to be these keyboard warriors, like you were mentioning before, you know, and a lot of these people are social justice warriors, like, you know, they're kind of fueling this whole cancel culture. So in what you're saying, there's like somewhat of a paradox, and it's kind of ironic in a sense. And I wouldn't want to say that I want to be able to create a safe space for people to be able to say whatever they want. It's just like that should just be almost known. So I just want to take that term completely out of my fucking vernacular.
But everything is just so like unsafe right now. Like people can't even come to a friend and say, this is my opinion and this is how I feel, without getting borderline attacked.
Oh, well, you know what? I think this is kind of, in a sense, it's fucked up. But this is in a sense kind of like an interesting time for people like us who are very attuned and kind of aware and introspective and retrospective as well, to be able to be like, you know what? I'm separating the wheat from the chaff. And if you can't fucking handle what I'm bringing to the table right now, it's never going to work, because these are the conversations that I'd like to have. So
1,000%.
You know, I think right now, like, a lot of things have been illuminated in the sense of, you know, where people stand, how people how people do react to certain situations, and how much it allows for discourse. And I'm not seeing a lot of discourse, and that's kind of been my biggest kind of like a conundrum. It's just like, this is very confusing. Like, there are so many things being said, which I think is brilliant, but we're not actually listening to one another, and we have adopted this cancel culture. And I mean, it kind of just is what it is. It's so disheartening, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but if you can't handle it, having just a conversation and knowing that no one's really right, there's no right or wrong. There absolutely is no right or wrong. We just have to be in agreement that there is going to be no right or wrong, and we just want to appreciate other people's opinions and just kind of hear it out and then move on. We kind of either come to the conclusion that, maybe I should reevaluate how I'm thinking, or, you know, I still actually feel very firmly in my beliefs, but still appreciating where the other person is coming from. I think that really has been exposed in this, and yeah, I think we've totally wavered on the side of either people cancel each other out, or they just don't want to talk because they don't want to be canceled out. And it's really kind of, I don't know, it's kind of disappointing, because it like now seems like the best time to be able to having conversations and allowing for discourse. But there really isn't room for discourse. And ironically, I feel as though it's the same people that have been spearheading terms like creating a safe place. Because I mean,
I don't
yeah,
think I had anyone saying those words though. Even
creating a safe
yeah,
place and
even
a
in
safe
the
space
social
for.
justice realm. Like I hear them saying we want to be heard, and I hear them saying we need a platform. I don't think I hear those terms safe space in that context. And because I'm very aware of a lot of the groups and everything that I kind of follow, and I don't hear those words. I'm like, but that's what we
Well, I'd
need.
imagine that you probably wouldn't hear those words in those groups because it's all of like-minded individuals. But if you get those kind of groups in, people that actually really truly do believe in the First Amendment and truly do believe in free speech, you will hear that. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in institutions, and by institutions I mean like
So
schools.
where are you hearing it? Like who's saying it? Who's spearheading
Safe
these words?
space?
Yeah.
Oh, I think a lot of it fundamentally is coming from educational institutions where students are starting to be like, I need a safe space where I can just say things that don't allow for discourse. There's this really interesting book that I started to read. It's by I think it's Dr. Greg Lukianoff, and he's a First Amendment lawyer, and basically, the book is Unlearning Liberty, and the basis of the book is kind of unpacking different cases in which free speech has been challenged in schools, and I feel like that doctrine, in particular, policing of speech has really been pushed, and maybe not in Canadian schools, actually very much in Canadian schools. Jordan Peterson could speak to this a lot more, but policing of speech and students feeling as though you shouldn't challenge different people's opinions because it'll upset others. And
I
that
think we're talking about
terminology.
two different things though.
Okay, sorry. So what is it that you mean then?
Because when I hear this side of it, I hear what you're saying in the whole wanting to be able to speak and not have it be policed and that. But I think if you look on kind of that other side of it, it's not so that it's not challenged, but people don't even know how to have discourse. People don't know how to have actual dialogues. So when I speak to creating, let's just say, a neutral environment where people can speak, I'll say it like that, a neutral environment.
Sure.
So bringing in things like listening to understand and asking questions that aren't on the realm of defense and attack. So how do I actually ask a person a question without taking down their side of it? How do I use invitational language to actually coax out what this person is trying to say?
What is invitational language?
See, we don't know these things. Invitational language is talking in a way of what is it? So basically inviting somebody into an experience. So if you're using something along the lines of, well, what would it be like if you thought about this in a different way? Could you see something in the alternative? So inviting them to see something else rather than being like, well, you need to open your mind. You need to have a different mindset. That's very different than saying, would you be willing to hear the viewpoint that I'm bringing to the table and have a dialogue? Like inviting somebody in, calling them into a dialogue rather than going on the attack and saying, well, no, I disagree. No, that's not right. Because then instantly right there, we've sucked the air out of the conversation. It's gone. That dialogue has no space.
Well,
But
it seems to be though.
tactics, then we can open that up and other people can actually have that space. Like we don't even understand the nuances and the gray areas of an actual dialogue anymore. We're not taught this shit. We're not ever really engaged with it. Like I don't remember having constructive and healthy dialogue and questions with a lot of different teachers growing up. Like that was never a thing. Those conversations were one-sided. Your thoughts did get policed. The words that you said did get policed. So you kind of grow up in this space of how do I even debate? how do I even bring my ideas to the table without instantly getting shut down and getting attacked for it?
Mm.
Because right now we have so many people who, A, don't even have the articulation to be able to bring their thoughts to the table, and B, we have the majority of people not even being able to speak up because somebody will be there to just squash it. So then they've stopped. They're not coming to these conversations. They don't want to be a part of it. And that's fair. Like, I look at this online realm of free speech and all of that. It's terrifying. People are nasty. Like, it's relentless. It's brutal. It makes no sense. And I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's okay to be as aggressive and dictatorial as we are in the ways in which things are being communicated. Like, everything is a demand.
Yeah.
And it's
No, sorry, continue. I was just agreeing. Yeah.
No, there's just so many there's a lot of different aspects to it. Like, so when I look at the trainings that I run and these workshops that we do, invitational language is a key part of it. And that comes with being trauma informed and mental health informed. So it's coming to the table in a space of empathy and compassion. So even if you can't empathize with the person and can't understand where they're coming from, you can still have a conversation. You can still hold space for that person to have an authentic experience and have their emotions and their thoughts and their feelings around something without you taking it personally. I think we have such deep attachment to things. And as soon as somebody says something that goes against our own grain, it's like in a personal affront and it's a personal attack. And you're like, well, no, but we all have a lived experience that we need to be able to hold space for and allow it to come to the table and have breath. But a lot of the time we don't, and we don't have the capabilities for that. So I think about the amount of people that have gone through the trainings in specific where I hold this, what we talk about is holding space and allowing people to be. And like 9 times out of 10, by the time people are done that training, they're like, my relationships have altered because I now know how to communicate and dialogue with my partner. My relationships with my friends have changed because I now know how to actually like listen to understand and not jump down their throat and get so offended when they talk. And I'm like, how are we not talking about this? Because when I first learned it blew me away. It changed everything. And I don't know, I see so much in it. And then I get really like, I just get to the point where I'm like, can we just like hit a reset button? Can we just go back? Can we just like start over? And all be nice? Just, like,
No,
who cares?
That's a very egalitarian view. And I mean, I get it. But this is kind of, the stage has been set for such education. So, yeah. I mean,
and
it's happening. I mean, even just the conversation we're having, I'm learning about invitational language and like, oh, okay, that's an interesting concept. I never had heard of it. So it's happening. It's in front of us. So it's just, we just need time. I think we just get so caught up in how technology has advanced us so greatly, but at the same time, like, we kind of become disillusioned in the sense of like we have a kind of a distorted view in terms of time. In your lifetime and my parents' lifetime, they went through the civil rights movement. In my parents' lifetime, they went through the feminist movement. Like, this stuff, it's really just kind of a blink of the eye in terms of like the whole landscape of time. So we're growing really frustrated with one another in the sense that like, why aren't we better? But it's just like, but women just started voting, really, when you think of it. Like, you lay it all down historically, it's like, well, blacks were and whites were all just able to be in the same vicinity as one another. So it's just like, we all just kind of need to pump the brakes and realize, like, oh, just because we have augmented reality and you have someone like Elon Musk talking about Neuralink, where you're going to be able to just, like, my thoughts are going to be transmitted to your thoughts, doesn't mean that from, like, kind of like a primitive mindset or a primitive kind of landscape that, we weren't just hunters and gatherers. We didn't just kind of evolve from that. So, like, we're in a weird time in that technology is awesome. We're able to have these conversations, and I can do a Skype conversation with you, and you're in New Zealand, I'm in Vancouver, and then, like, we can have these conversations. But at the same time, it's like, also my grandmother, who's still alive, remembers not being able to share, a meal in the same restaurant as someone of a different race as her. That's what we're talking about. So it's like the duality of those two things. So we also have to, in a sense, be like, mindful and less, like, kind to one another, and, like, kind to, like, this whole process, and that it's just the growing pains. This is just the growing pains. But we're, from
math.
But, like, from, if you lay down statistics historically, I think it's Steven Pinker who kind of lays this all out in different books that he has. But he's like, historically, crime has never been so low. Historically, access to education has never been so broad. It's never been so wide. We're making strides, but there are obviously other areas that we're lacking. We just need the patience and the time to be able to be like, okay, things are evolving. It's just frustrating because we think that we're so far advanced, but yet there's other areas of life that just aren't. So it's confusing. It's really confusing. Mm. But it's conversations like these and kind of mediums that we create, like, doing a podcast like this, that allows for people to be like, oh, okay, I realize. Okay, invitational language. Huh, that's a new concept. Sure, let's go on with that. Yeah. So it's just got to take the good with the less good, I guess. It's the growing pains.
Oh, it is. It's big. And I think that's the big part of it, is that we see these advancements that we make. And I just think with how advanced technology and medicine and consciousness is now, I'm like, but we're so advanced. Why? What? How are we still, like, making strides backwards and forwards? But it is that growing pain and that shift, and it's that ebb and flow, and we have access to, I would almost argue, too much information, because it's like the information that's out there is, there's so many varying degrees on one topic that we have all of these then varying degrees on everything else. And I think that's just where so much of this friction and these arguments come from. And anyone and everyone can be an armchair anything. And you're like, okay, yep, here we are in this place. And I think that there's just so much in having that inner need and inner want for change to be made and impacts to happen. And I think it can just get to the point where you just see the climate, and it can get overwhelming to see the points that still need to be worked on. And it is that moment where you have to step back and celebrate the wins. Like, the LGBTQ community had a huge win the other day with that law that got passed. It's fucking massive.
Which is crazy. And for a lot of people, myself included, it was like, oh, really? That wasn't just the what do you mean?
I thought it was like, are we, what? Is it?
Yeah.
Huh?
It's just but that's also just like kind of a lack of education. But it's like, at the end of the day, we're still like chimps passing these laws. Like, don't be disillusioned that it's like a chimp that is deciding that he wants to create something like Neuralink, or like a chimp deciding that this law should be passed. Like, it's like, we're still
toddlers trying to figure this out. Like, we're all just like,
it's like, so like, let's just be, I don't know. I obviously don't have the answers, but it's just like, these are very, very frustrating growing pains, and that we just have to be patient because things are changing, but it takes fucking time. It takes time. So
Well,
what do you do?
Part of me can't wait.
So what do you do in a situation like that? Like, because the change comes from within, you know, like, what is it? Gandhi is like, be the change of the world that you want to see. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, so what do you do? And what can I do to shift things so that you're not having to be frustrated, that you're not getting deep conversations with people? Is it a matter of just like making, you know, creating more of these podcasts where it's like you're able to have more of these conversations, or do you bring those people into an environment where you can create a space where you have invitational language, and it's like, okay, this is an okay place for us to just have discourse? Like, what do you do? And what do other people do that are listening to this that may have the same frustrations? And I'm not expecting you to have the answer for that. That's very loaded. And it would be very dickish for me to be like,
answer that.
I need an answer, please.
No.
But, you know, if you were to just spitball, what would you do?
The biggest thing for me that comes up is quite literally exactly that quote, be the change you want to see. Because for me, when I saw, okay, there's a lack of mental health informed practices for this, so I created it and I went and did that thing. So I'm very action orientated. As soon as I see something that's not there for me, I have to take the step to create it or find someone that I can collaborate with to create the thing. So let's say it's those deep conversations. I seek them out. I'll go and connect with the people that I know I can have deep conversations with. But to start it all, I have to scale it back. I have to get really clear with myself. Why am I lacking deep conversations? Why do I need them? So it's that self-reflection piece for me that's really, really important, is coming back to that space of, why do I need this and why do I feel like it's lacking? Because it's not that it's lacking externally. Something within is afoot and not right. And I need to get clear on that and figure out what that actually looks like. So when I can do that, then I can go forth and make that change, because it has to start with self, always. And I think a lot of the time, the discomfort can be when we try and force change externally without first changing internally. Once you get that internal kind of compass set and cleaned off and recalibrated, then you can go forth and make those changes. So thinking in that regard, for me, it's things like meditation, self-reflection. My yoga practice is really important. Having deep conversations with people so that I can tease out the truths that I need to hear. Those are really important to me. And then when I get clear on that stuff, then I can go forth and create and make things happen. But if I was constantly trying to force an external change, then I'm just going to be angry and mad about all of it, because all of that is being reflected from the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like kind of it is a very tactful approach. And I think for people that are listening to this that are kind of already on that path, that they even understand the importance of self-reflection, the importance of meditation. You know, they may or may not practice yoga, but some sort of, some sort of mindfulness, then they'll get that. But I think I wouldn't want to, I don't think we're speaking to those people because they already know, you know, like they already kind of like,
even though they know, you have to like know, and then you have to put it into practice, because the amount of people that I talk to, even in my circle, who are very tuned in and tapped into mindfulness and yoga, they're fucking losing their shit half the time. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what is happening?
Well, they're getting caught up in that fucking human experience.
Exactly.
Spiritual beings having a human experience, and they get caught up in the human experience. But it's easy to do that because you're frustrated too. Yeah, you're frustrated too. So you're caught up in the human experience. I'm caught up in the human experience because I'm just fucking. If you're frustrated, God, I'm over the edge. Yeah. You know, so it's like, how do we bring it back? How do we bring it back? Just like, whew. I don't know.
It's that though. Like, because if I think about the people who aren't, I don't really know the word for it, because I don't want to say like mindfully inclined, because that's not right. And I don't want to say spiritually inclined, because it has nothing to do with spirituality. So those that are different than I, because I don't know how to word it, those that are different.
Sure. That's very tactful. I like it.
I'm like, I don't know. I think what it comes down to and what I see is like, get uncomfortable and sit in that discomfort, because for me, it's always been about that space. Like, whenever I have conversations with people who are like, oh, no, like, yoga's not for me. Like, get this mindfulness out of here. Like, blah, blah, blah. Want nothing to do with it. Eventually, that's what the conversation comes back to, because they're like, oh, yeah, I just noticed, like, when I was playing golf the other day, I was really, I was just kind of, like, thinking about things, and I was like, oh, shit, you had a mindful experience. I'm like, no, I was golfing. And I'm like, oh, okay, call it whatever you want, but you had that experience.
Yeah.
Had a moment with yourself. So call it what you will, but take 5 minutes to just say, like, hey, you in there, how are we feeling? Like, what is happening? What is going on right now? And see how you feel. Like, that's another huge thing. The amount of people who have like such little interoceptive awareness, like being able to actually tell how you're physically feeling inside, we need to get back to that. Like, there is such a disconnect between this being and the physical little meat suitcase that we come in. If we can come back to that understanding that we are this energy, whatever, consciousness, being, like whatever you want to call it, inside this little meat package, when you can actually feel that in your body and feel the physical sensations of discomfort or excitement or anger or whatever, when you start to develop that, you're a lot more likely to be able to actually sit in those spaces of silence with yourself. Because a lot of the time people don't want to meditate and they don't want to do yoga or mindfulness because they have to sit in silence with themselves. That can be a very terrifying and scary place to be. To close your eyes, to not hear anything else, and to just be with your thoughts. Even me saying those words, I bet there's some people out there cringing to no other. And
they're
like,
100%.
nah,
100%.
Get that out of here.
100%.
I
cringe.
Practice.
I cringe.
Yeah. And it's a practice, because we have to be okay knowing that those feelings aren't the be-all, end-all, and they're really not us. It's a hormonal cocktail that's running through our body. It's not actually us. And I think if we're more educated in that way and more understanding of how we operate, we're more okay with these uncomfortable moments, and we're more okay with risk, and we're more okay with vulnerable conversations, because we're okay with feeling that way. But I think over time, there's been such a segregation and isolation of the two that to try and articulate that and have those conversations with people can be really difficult. But like, I'll speak a million different languages. I'll speak them all until that person gets it. So I can speak to somebody who's mindfully inclined. I'll speak to somebody who wants nothing to do with it. It's all about articulating it in a way that speaks their language. It's like speaking French to a French person. Meeting them where they're at.
Yeah. I think, though, a lot of, I totally hear what you're saying, and I see the benefit. I know the benefits from my own practice of mindfulness, because I'm someone that's like so fucking reactive, and I'm like, my amygdala is hyper aroused all the time. Like, I am ready to go.
Like, oh!
So I understand that, but at a time like this where you see an image of, for example, a defenseless man having a police officer's knee on his neck, how on earth can you be mindful? How do you not have a visceral reaction that I'm going to fucking take to the streets. I'm going to shut people down because I've been biting my tongue for so long, and now is my time. You know, I've tried to play the good person, and now is not the time. You know, how do we get to those people and say, look, you know, just take a minute, assess how you feel, and then make the reaction? Because
the reaction, that's what we want to shift. That's exactly what we want to shift, because that reaction is coming from that place that's not online. Like, we kind of turn offline, because as soon as you see that, your body has its whole stress response. Like, I remember seeing that and just, I fucking broke. I couldn't, like, there was, like, you can't, even just thinking about it now, I have a full body response to it. But the difference is that I can take a moment and take a breath and say, okay, if I react to this, it's going to be from anger, it's going to be from fear, it's going to be from dark rage. But if I can take a breath and respond, I'm going to respond from a sacred rage that fuels me. That's logical, that's rational. And I'm going to harness that and make a change from there. Because if I reacted, it's not a good look. I think about reacting in moments of, let's say, a really uncomfortable conversation with a partner, and they say something really mean, and I get really reactive and I snap back and I lose my shit, and then I'm like, well, that wasn't cute for anyone. But as I've grown, there's moments where I'm like, oh, okay, bite my tongue, take a breath. And it's within that breath that I can be like, okay, come back. Why do I feel this way? Why does this irk me and cause such friction in my body? And then I can articulate it and have such a better response, such a better outcome from it. Like, I'm not saying don't take to the streets. Get out there, get loud, make the difference that you want to see, but make it come from that place of sustainable energy and sustainable, like, that sacred rage from within, where you know it's being fueled from a place of greater good rather than just fear and anger. Because when we come from that place, that's not where sustainable change comes from. That's like that immediate change where you make that decision and then it fizzles out and it's not the one that you wanted. But when you can make that sustainable change and go from it in that direction, that's when I think we can make these changes. And that's why I think it takes time. If we think about the women's movement, if we think about all of these civil movements, it is that time. It took that time. Yes, there was angry moments along the way, but think of the people who, like, think of the Nelson Mandelas. Think of the MLKs. Think of what they went through, and then they came out of that place and were like, okay, you know what? I've bridled this, I've harnessed it, and now I'm ready. Now I can have these conversations.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought those two up, and I think actually that's what's lacking here, is that there's no beacon for, at least as far as I can see. Again, let me preface, Canadian woman living in Vancouver. I am not African American. I am very far removed from this, so I'm only seeing what's been depicted on TV and what's being depicted online. But as far as I can see, there hasn't been, one beacon that embodies all of the things that you basically had described, that embodies that mindfulness, that, look, I'm not going to react. I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to see how I feel, and I'm going to make a very tactful response, whether it's, a physical response or whether it's, a verbal response. And that is a real shame, because I think there might be, I think I'm a little, I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic, and I'm not necessarily a nihilist, but I am slightly skeptical in the sense that I don't know if there's really going to be the change that we're talking about here, because there isn't that one beacon that embodies all of that. Like there's a guru that's like the better one, and it's like we're all kind of striving to be that good. You know, when you have someone in power like Trump, that is so far removed from any sort of mindfulness, who do you turn to? You know, when you have someone, you know, like Jesse Jackson, it's like, who do I'm not going to turn to Al Sharpton. There's like so many fucking things that I don't like about this person. It's obviously not like a super mindful person. So I really do feel for, you know, this movement and African Americans, because there is no beacon. As far as I can see, there isn't that one bright light that's shining through that embodies all of the mindfulness, the mindful attributes that we're talking about, and is able to educate people on like, nope, stand down, don't react. And that is really a shame, because I feel like there's the stage has been set to have such persons stand up and rise above the rise above kind of this state of uncertainty, but I just don't see it. And so therefore I kind of waver on the side of, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like super hopeful that people are going to kind of be as mindful as they need to be in this time. But again, I'm not trying to speak out of turn. I'm just kind of shooting this shit. But I you know, I'm a little bit removed, but I just don't see it. I haven't seen that person. And it's a real shame, because here you have all these fucking Instagram gurus and so on and so forth. And it's like, who the fuck is stepping up?
Exactly.
Who the fuck is stepping up? You want to post online every day that you're being mindful and just like, hey, and namaste. You want to post all this shit, but who the fuck is stepping up?
Yeah.
Who is going to be the one person that's like, this is it? Who's going to be the Bhagwan? And there's no fucking Bhagwan right now. And it's crazy. It's actually it's mind-blowing to me that there is no Bhagwan.
I know. I was like, Angela Davis, come on, step up. Like, I'm ready. Love her. And I was thinking of her. I was looking to Melina Abdullah, and I was like, yes, like, this is the time. I see what Barack Obama is putting out there. I see what Michelle Obama is putting out there. Rachel Cargle is one to watch. She's educated AF, and she calls it like it is. But I'm also missing that person who has the compassion in the heart and the kind of interwoven pieces of it. So I look to, like, Sophia Bush. Her platform is incredible. She elevates and pulls people up and in such a beautiful, beautiful way. So she's actually been supporting a lot of really incredible activists and advocates right now. So she's one to check out because of her platform and what she's bringing into it. And I'm hoping that within that, because what I see in her is that she's very mindful and present with all of it. And there's something in that. And I think she brings those people together in that way. But yeah, I'm wondering, because I was wondering that, I was like, who's going to be the person that like just spearheads this thing and takes it to the level it needs to be taken to? But I think there's I don't know if it's so much stuff gets taken down that I wonder how much we actually miss as well. Like, how many people are actually being silenced in all of this that we're not able to hear from? Because I'll see things being shared and posted from certain people, and then it's gone. And I'm like, well,
it's fucked up. It's so crazy. It's the irony. The irony.
Right. Exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, who actually knows? Maybe there are people up and in this spotlight that are just being silenced to the degree that because we're so far removed from it, we're actually not seeing it.
Holy fucking shit, Amanda. That just blew my fucking mind, dude. It is like, that honestly just blew my fucking mind. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like, I'm trying to think of the expression. But essentially it's kind of like when Tiger eats the master. Like it's just like it's like you created this, you wanted this, but at the same time you're shutting it down, so you're not even allowing for the good to come out of it. You wanted these safe spaces, okay, sure, but like I can't even really truly articulate it. It's just, yeah, I really actually wonder, it makes you wonder at if we had kind of the kind of social kind of climate that we have now, would people like MLK and Nelson Mandela, would they even be able to have risen up as much as they have? I'm sure, because people didn't like them. It's like, that's hate speech. Turn them down. That's hate speech. Take it down. It's like, but so now we're seeing, that is the perfect example. So we're seeing what the issue is here. You can't fucking silence people, man. You can't fucking silence people. You gotta let people talk, because in those discussions, you're going to have a winner. You're going to have one person that's like, oh, this guy or this person, woman, man, whatever, trans, whatever the fuck, this person is saying something that's really interesting. I think you guys gotta hear it.
You gotta listen.
That just blew my mind. That really just blew my mind.
You're welcome.
Wow. I don't like it. I feel disgusted. I don't
right now.
I don't know if I'm like super hopeful now, but I fucking hope to God that people listen to this. Just listen to that last little 5-minute bit.
We should just
I might just take that clip. I just might just take this clip and just this 5 little bit and realize, like, oh, we really shouldn't silence people, because there might be a seed of a good idea in there for someone. And if you say that, nope, that's not a good idea. If you would have told MLK, if you would have told Nelson Mandela, if you would have told all these fucking Gloria Steinem, if you would have told these people that, nope, that's too aggressive, that's hate speech, where would we be right now? Where the fuck would we be right now?
Like, nowhere. Literally nowhere. It would have burned to the ground.
Whoa, that just blew my goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Wild stuff.
And what else is there?
I you know what? Like that, I honestly don't even know. I think that is a lesson to be learned by everyone. And I'm not saying that in a self-righteous way, as of like, oh, we just took people to school. But I feel like we just took people to school, dude. We just took people, because you took me to school. I took you to school. Little House on the Prairie. We all go to school.
Yeah.
That was just mind-blowing stuff. And maybe we all need to sit with that. We all need to sit in our little corners and think about it. That's what COVID was. We all need a timeout. And obviously, after the timeout, have you ever seen a parent talking to a kid, puts them in a timeout, and the kid's like totally chills out for a little bit, and then comes out and they're like a little asshole again? Yeah. And the parent's like, what the fuck?
That's what we just did.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And granted, what happened with George Floyd just pushed everyone over the edge. Maybe we could have been better, but then it was like, fuck. Yeah. Like you put the kid in the corner, he comes out of the corner, and then his sister pushes him, and then of course he's going to react. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But God, like, I feel like this is kind of like, this was the ultimate test of just, let's think before we react. Yeah. But what do you do? What do you do, man? How do you not react to that? How do you not take to the streets?
Oh, and that's the thing. Like, I really do think that this is the time that I think we were meant to take to the streets, because if you look at it, they tried to take away our fundamental right of meeting. Like, they're trying to ban protests. I don't know if you saw, but Alberta's trying to ban protesting. Get fucked, Jason Kenney. I'm sorry. He is the worst.
I feel like that is going to be an entire web series in its own right. How you feel about Jason Kenney. And I'm sure you're not the only one, sister.
Oh,
sure you're not the only one.
Line them up. So, yeah, trying to ban protesting. Okay, pal. No. He's trying to ban it because you're making so many awful decisions that people have to protest them. That's what's happening. So we see that, but we saw it elsewhere. They tried to take all of these things away. So they kept us segregated. They kept us isolated in our little bubbles and doing all of this because we saw how much the protests were escalating around climate change. That was getting bigger and bigger. We saw it happening around the world, that protesting was like, we were hitting a boiling point. Things were happening. And then you contain all of that in these little tiny pockets, and then we're slowly released back into quote unquote this new normal. And that's one of the first things we bear witness to. And people were just like, nope, like enough is enough. But from that moment, the amount of beauty and powerful change that has come from that, like, I can't even wrap my head around it, because it didn't even go just in the way of Black Lives Matter, but we started having real conversation around police funding and the militarization around police. They're handling things that they're not meant to be handling. It makes sense to redistribute. That's bottom line. But then you see all of this stuff around the LGBTQ community. You see all of this stuff around climate change. You see all of these things happening around Indigenous and Aboriginal, worldwide, actually making steps in their own civil movement. Like, this is a tipping point. Like, 2020 is not messing around. She's like, we are going to sort shit out. And I'm like, okay, girl. And I really hope that everyone comes together out of this lockdown and is like, I'm ready to do better. A little bit, please.
I guess, kind of in closing here, I maybe had already asked you, but, as a mindfulness practitioner, as someone that has dedicated their life to this practice, yoga, what else would you call it? Mindfulness, like,
yeah, mindfulness and an informed way of being in this world.
It's not even just for the people that are, like, quote unquote mindfully inclined. What kind of advice do you give for the average person? Because now we're talking, like, explain it like I'm a 5-year-old.
Okay, break that down. Like, explain all
of
it.
Well, if someone's listening, if someone stumbles upon this podcast and they're maybe not a little less attuned, their self-agency is either not there or just, like, it's kind of, like, muted. What is the takeaway that you want them to get from this? And it might be a loaded question, but I am curious as well, because I am very appreciative of the work that you do and even the lessons that I've learned in being your friend. But I kind of was already on the cusp. So if someone just stumbles onto this, if, say, my brother listens to this, who's, like, totally kind of checked out, what is he supposed to get from this?
Loaded question is right.
It's loaded. It might be, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of, like, where you've done, you've been introduced with someone that had no idea about it. They were apprehensive about all of this.
Oh, every day.
Yeah, I'd imagine. So what do you say to them, and what kind of advice do you give them?
Well, I kind of start by asking a question and ask, what would you consider your relationship with yourself be? Like, how well do you know yourself? And, like, I mean know yourself. I don't mean how well do you know yourself enough to just get up, have breakfast, go to work, go to bed. I mean, like, how well do you know what you fundamentally care about? Do you know your boundaries? Do you know the legacy that you want to leave in this life? And if I ask you those questions and you're like, I've never thought about it, then I can tell you that there is space for you to deepen that understanding of yourself, and there's room to actually explore that. So start in a space of curiosity. Start in a space of, I know nothing, and I'm working towards knowing as much as I can. So asking a question every morning, how am I actually feeling right now? How do I feel in my body? How do I feel being here in my body? And get to know that and explore what it's like to actually notice your breath. Explore what it's like to actually notice the sounds around you. What is it like to actually take up space in this world? How can you become 1 degree more engaged in it? How can you taste your food a little bit more? How can you interact with people in a different way? Because I'll ask people, like, kind of depends what avenue they're coming from and what they're used to, but it's kind of like that person who wants to be a wine sommelier. To be a wine sommelier, just to know a little bit more about wine, you have to actually do the study. And when you take a sip of wine, there's so much more than just taking a sip. You smell it, you swirl it, you swish it around your mouth, you do that weird little thing, so annoying. But you do that, and you do all of this to simply taste and experience a glass of wine. Can you do that with yourself? Can you get curious about how you operate, why you think the things that you think, without being attached to them, without being attached to your mindsets and your beliefs, but start kind of from this blank slate of like, okay, well, why do I like chocolate ice cream and nothing else? Maybe it's just because that is attached to something from way back when now I actually like, what's the flavor of ice cream? Bubblegum ice cream. And I never would have known had I not reintroduced myself to different things and actually started to get to know myself again. So it's kind of like this space of, if you can frame it in a way of getting to know you, the mindfulness takes care of itself. Because to get to know you, you have to be present and aware of your current experience. So you don't even have to say the word mindful. If you just go down a path of trying to get to know yourself, that in and of itself already means that you're being mindful, because you have to be present in order to hear what's coming from the inside out.
Yeah.
So a loaded answer for a loaded question.
Yeah, I love that. I love
in that as well.
Is there like some sort of collateral that you would prescribe to someone, like in the sense of like a book that they can read, a video that they can watch, something that you've put together? Is that something that you could potentially share? We can link it in the description for this video.
Yeah, so everything, the name of my business is the Self Agency Academy. So everything on my website is geared around that. Every training, every workshop, every retreat that I run. So if you check that out, there will be that. And then on Facebook, I share different resources from other people all of the time. One book that literally changed my life is The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, girl.
It's hands down, literally life-changing.
Yeah.
It's next level. That's the first place I would start. Well, maybe not the first. You might want an intro to get into that space.
No, guns blazing. Just go
so
and ham on it. Yeah, for sure. It's a great book. It's amazing. You recommended it to me. It was not an easy read by any stretch, but it was, at the end of it, it was like there was rewarded. Yeah, rewarded. Yeah, rewarded.
And one person that I would follow on social media is the holistic psychologist. So she's epic, and she makes everything just like really bite-sized chunks. So she it's like a daily dose of, here's how you operate. Have it. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of quick, easy snippets where you can actually figure out what is going on up here and how does that impact the rest of my body, and vice versa.
Yeah. That's awesome. All of that information I will throw into the description. I'll also throw it onto the screen when I actually make the edits to this. Amanda, this is the second one that we've done, but this one was so much more powerful than I thought it would be. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to fucking thank you, because this was awesome. I love you so much. Yeah, this was really good. So thank you for doing this. I mean, we'll be doing more of these, right? There's so much to talk about, so I'd imagine we'd be doing more of these. And I love you so much, and I think that this is going to be useful for, even maybe just the one person that hears it. And if it's just my mom, then I hope the bitch reads the body keeps the score, because it might be useful to her. So
it's so good. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Stay online. I'm going to stop the recording.